Who was Charlie Kirk?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I love his wife and know his wife well. And so I feel emotional about it. So, I just haven't wanted everything to do with it. But I will say a couple of things. I don't understand the official story at all.
Of his assassination,
I
you mean?
don't understand it. And I want to make sure that there is a truly rigorous and honest federal investigation of it. And I'm definitely concerned about that. A. B, I think that I don't know many of the details, but I know that recently Candace said that Egyptian registered aircraft were following Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow, around for a number of years in different places in the world. That's one of the weirdest things I've ever heard. And I just want to say that is factually true. That's true. So that's like the one data point that I happen to know is true. What does that mean? I have literally no idea. I can't even guess, but that's very, very strange.
And what is Egyptian?
So again, what Tucker's getting at, this is the first statement publicly that he's made on the Candace Owens efforts and the whole Charlie Kirk assassination plot, right? And I think what he's saying is fair so far, that we want a rigorous and honest investigation. And quite frankly, when we look at some of the investigations that the government has had in past large issues, such as assassinations or other, some of the data that they've given us is questionable. And quite frankly, with Candace's, I'm going to show you a clip here of what he's getting at with Candace, and it's important as well. And there are questions, and we need to be asking these questions, and it's not wrong to be inquisitive where there's gaps in the narrative, at least as far as we're publicly being told by the authorities.
It could mean aircrafts from Egypt. Who knows?
I think that they were registered in Egypt.
Got it.
And but that fact is true. So and it also her claim that, there were kind of a disproportionately large number of foreign registered cell phones at the event. That's also true. So what does that add up to? I don't know, but it means that, the FBI has a moral and legal obligation to look in every direction and to be open-minded as you would in any investigation, in journalism, in science. It's all the same process. I don't know the answer, and I'm going to sift through everything as open-mindedly as I can, as honestly as I can, to get to what the truth is. That's science, that's law enforcement, that's journalism. It's all the same. That's justice.
That is justice. And that's kind of where I am as well, that I'm not signing up to any one of the narratives. I'm just simply inquiring. I'm following some of the stuff that's on X and on YouTube and on what other questions people are asking. And I think that's where Tucker is too.
And I just want to make sure that is happening. And I just don't have a ton of confidence in the FBI or the men who run it. And I'm not saying that out of ignorance at all.
That's a scary part too.
What Candace is saying is clearly causing a lot of turmoil. Is it true or not? I can't assess it. I'm not the FBI. I'm a freaking podcaster, but I do know how the system works, and it's really simple. The FBI has this case, and of course the state of Utah. It's their job to not only find out what happened, but present it to the public in a way that restores some confidence that you can have justice in this country. We have functioning law enforcement. I don't have confidence in that because there's a lot of evidence that we don't have that. So restore confidence by being honest and telling a story that makes sense. So why, and if they don't do that, and they haven't done that, they have not done that, how can you be mad at Candace Owens or anyone else for filling a vacuum that they left?
Yeah.
Well, Candace is okay. No. The people with the authority are the ones responsible, and they're the ones who should be held responsible when there's a failure. Not some podcaster, not me, not you, not Candace, the people whose job it is. And their default assumption was we acted alone. Really? Why do you think that? What about life suggests that people typically act alone? When was the last time you acted alone in anything? I don't go, right? So A. B, we know that people had foreknowledge of this because they posted about it on X and said Charlie Kirk is going to be killed on this date, and he was.
Is that true?
So I'm going to jump in here, and I did see some of these posts that Tucker's alluding to. I understand where he's going. I understand what he's saying, but let me just say this, because again, I'm hesitant to jump on any of these directions without more concrete proof. there is proof that people on X were saying that Charlie was going to have a bad day and that there were efforts afoot. My guess is this, is that that kind of chatter online probably happened at every or before many, I'll say, Charlie Kirk events. He was a polarizing figure, unfortunately, for saying what he said. I believe that what he said was fair. It was biblically and faith-based in his motivations and in his logic. And that was something that the leftist doesn't like. They don't like to hear some of those things. That said, what Tucker's saying here is there was and there were X posts. And I think that anybody who had posts going into that Utah event that Charlie had should be talked to quite sternly by the authorities, because I think this instance shouldn't be treated like any others. My theory is that he probably had threats going into almost every one of his events. I think that's probably a fair statement, even though I don't have the proof. My feeling, though, is that anybody specifically in this Utah university event had that, they should probably get a real clear look.
True?
Yes, it's true.
But were they just guessing? Was it a guessing thing where every
It's
day
like
they
when he
posted that?
maybe
Exactly.
Have those people been interviewed? Have they been hauled into FBI HQ and had a long conversation with how they knew that? Like, let's get really specific. Why did you post that? Who have you talked to? Like, if I were doing this investigation, because I spent my whole life doing non-criminal investigations called journalism, like, what do we know is true? How do we find out? Call everybody, be open-minded. It's like it's the same process. If I was doing this investigation, they would be at the very top of the list. We know, because we've got public postings on Twitter that people know, just like on 9/11. We know people bet against American Airlines and the banks that were
That's true.
in the World Trade Centers. They shorted those stocks. Those people clearly had foreknowledge of 9/11. Who were those people? We still don't know. So I would start there.
But so you're saying that just the fact that there could possibly be some foreknowledge should be
Well,
investigated?
there was foreknowledge because
Okay.
I saw the tweets.
Got
And so I saw at least two that said, everything's going to change when Charlie Kirk gets to the college in Utah.
Okay.
So those people, I'm not saying they're a part of a conspiracy, but there's evidence that they had foreknowledge. Okay. So that's where you begin. And then I could go on. Like, tell me how this guy who seemed normal became a radical trans furry murderer. It's not enough to tell me, oh, trans. I'm not pro-trans, by the way.
But was that the guy or his boyfriend?
Well, exactly right. Tell me how this guy became so radicalized that he murdered a stranger. I'm not saying it didn't happen.
I
I'm
agree.
saying I want an explanation for how it happened. Why wouldn't I?
I agree.
But why do people like Candace so much? She's an amazing broadcaster, yes, because they sense in her, she might be wrong. Is she lying to me? Not on purpose. They sense the purity of her intent. That's the truth. And I can say, as someone who's dealt with government officials my whole life, I'm not vouching for everything Candace claims. I don't even know a lot of what she claims because I'm working on other stuff, and it makes me sad also. But the point is, do I trust Candace more than I trust your average DOJ official? Are you joking? It's not even close, dude.
Yeah.
That's really, I think, where we are. And I think Tucker brings up two critical points. There are vacuums in the storyline that the FBI and the authorities have told us. There's a lot of vacuums. And that's exactly why we see the people like Candace and others on X having issues in trying to get through the narrative. And in this instance, this is kind of a summary of where Tucker was in his statement here, that he did defend Candace in her questioning. I personally, and I'm going to show you a Candace clip here in a second, this is my feeling on Candace. I think she said a lot of things and questioned a lot of things, and I think some of which are very fair. My concern is this, is that I've yet to see proof, hard proof, of anything that she said. So does it logically make sense? Yes. Is there proof behind some of these big statements? And I'm going to show you one here in a minute. No. And that's where I'm going to stop. I want to see the proof. I'm very open to the storyline that there's holes and that some of it doesn't make sense. Let's just start with the caliber of the weapon, a 30-06. I think that doesn't make sense. Anybody that's familiar with some of the ballistics and what a 30-06 can do would tell you that is something that you might want to look at and question a little more as far as the entry, exit, any of the damage or splatter that could happen behind Charlie. But let's again get back to the point here. Tucker comes out with his statement. He says clearly, and I think it's fair, I don't understand the official story at all, and I think that's where I'm at. I don't agree or understand. He did validate some of the questions and points that Candace has made, specifically with Egyptian jets following Charlie's wife around. I think she had a few different data points that showed that there was something that's a little suspicious. The cell phone anomaly. I'm going to show you a clip here. And again, this is where I want to be, have a little reservation with where Candace is going. She makes a point. I'm going to be open to it, but I want the proof. And we can see if that's the case here in the clip I'm going to show you. And then lastly, again, Tucker's just talking about basic journalistic questions where you can have a little bit of cynicism with the story that's being told to us, which is, does it make sense that he acted alone? No, it doesn't. Does it make sense that somebody that was seemingly normal went to the furry side and these other alternative lifestyles? It could happen, could be the case, but does it truly make sense? I'm not certain about that. And let's get to one of the bigger claims that Candace has said. I want to show you this so that we can get your opinions on this as well. So here is a clip from Candace talking specifically about Israeli cell phones being pinged by the dozen at the event that Charlie Kirk was at in Utah.
Here's some explosive news for you that I can now, beyond a shadow of a doubt, confirm. Putting my name on this. Not only can I confirm this, but I can publicly challenge the very Zionist occupied Trump administration, who is aware of this, to deny it, to come out and say, no, that's not true. Okay. And if Kash Patel is done crying about the mean tweets on the internet regarding his sensational singing girlfriend, he can also certainly make the time of day to deny what I am saying if it is untrue, right? Because this is pretty relevant. Now, I should say that some people had actually reported this earlier, like Mel. I've been telling you to follow her, Village Crazy Lady over on X. She was actually very early with this reporting, and I had heard rumors and rumblings, but I wanted to make sure that I had verifiable proof, enough proof that I would go out on a limb, as I'm doing right now, and asserting that it is authentic and it is real. Ladies and gentlemen, there were, for whatever reason, 12 Israeli cell phones on the ground at Utah Valley University the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. This has completely spooked the people that are very high up in government. Now, to be clear, I don't mean that there were 12 VPNs that were switched and routed through Israel on that day. I mean that there were 12 personal cell phone accounts that were opened in Israel, okay? Like you go into Verizon in Tennessee or in Connecticut and you open your phone. I am saying that they opened their phones in Israel, those accounts in Israel, and they were on the ground on September 10th at Utah Valley University when Charlie was shot. Now, the NSA knows this. Kash Patel knows this. People in the current administration know this, and they are desperate for some reason to stop that information from being released to the public. Why? Because they're the most transparent administration ever? Is that why? Is this like Jeffrey Epstein transparency that we're getting? Because that's what it feels like. It always seems that on the topic of this one nation that's only the size of New Jersey and has done nothing wrong ever and was truly the greatest friend to Charlie right up until the very end, never put any pressure on him, suddenly everybody abandoned their values.
So let me jump in here. Candace has made a couple points, and we'll kind of ask a couple questions and again go through this logically. First off, Kash Patel and any one of the authorities that are kind of leading the investigation have really no reason to have to go on to Front Street and answer any of Candace's questions. So for her to sit here and say, hey, your silence, Kash Patel, in not getting back to me with my questions means that you're complicit or that there's something there. I don't buy that. I think quite frankly, being the director of the FBI, he's got a lot of things on his plate, and clearly this is a high-profile case. But having a podcaster like Candace come here and say, hey, I have these 5 things, and I want you to get back to me on these 5 things publicly, and if you don't, then, there's reason for us to believe that you're complicit. I don't know about that. I think, though, taking a few of these points and publicly admonishing them or denying them or factually walking through those will be important and would be important. In this instance, though, let's look at this, right? That Candace was basically making the case that there were 12 personal cell phones registered in Israel that were at the event. The problem with this statement that Candace is making is not that that might not be true. And if it is true, I guess it leads to some questions. I don't know. But the problem I have with this and every other statement that Candace has made, she didn't show me the proof. Where's the spreadsheet? Where's the information? I want to be able to see this proof. Now, what Candace is saying and doing in asking questions, I want to be very clear that it's important. This, and clearly her being a very close friend of Charlie's, any activity like this in asking questions and questioning a narrative and trying to get to the truth is important, has its place. That said, Candace, my only request of you is show us the data that you have. Don't just tell us you have the data, show us the data, right? And you did a little bit when we're getting back to the points on the Egyptian plane and you were tracking some planes around the country. But with these pings and with some of the other data or statements rather that you've said, show us the data. I think that's important, and I'll leave it at that. I am curious though what your thoughts are as you're watching this video on Tucker's statement and on Candace's statements, this being one of the many that she's made. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments. I'm going to leave you with this, and this is an important point coming in from Andrew Colvat over at Turning Point USA. Let me play this clip, and I just want to ask you this question.
I am open to a whole flurry of things. What I'm not open to is a theory that Tyler Robinson didn't kill Charlie. Mm-hmm. Who else was involved? Sure, I can talk about that. Was there other voices in row? But I'm not open to that because guess what? Mm-hmm. The evidence of that case is incredibly watertight. Mm-hmm. And I would like for us to focus on the rise of left-wing violence, the rise of mental health illness in this country, the rise of young people in the progressive side, turning to Mangionism and assassination culture, and the idea that they can solve their political disputes by justifying violence. And we're seeing more and more of that. Instead of focusing on that, we're getting taken down rabbit trails. And listen, I understand a good faith question. I understand that we've been lied to. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the people that have been harmed by this, our team, our staff, the movement, people that weigh into this issue, then they get caught up in it. There's been a lot of carnage, and I don't want that for the movement. I hope we can get through this sooner than later.
So the question I have of you is this, and again, I have all the sympathies for every one of the members at Turning Point USA going through a traumatic event like this. I think it's clearly been traumatic. But this is my question of you, Andrew. Is it really watertight? I don't think it is. I think anybody that's sitting here and just asking normal questions, from the ballistics to the timing to did he act alone, I don't think it is watertight. And I think every one of us has every right, including Candace, including Tucker, to be able to ask questions and simply because there are vacuums, there's holes. Some of those holes, I think, are going to be fairly filled in by the federal authorities. And when there is, a court hearing and case that we get Tyler Robinson in front of the judge. But until that point, I think there are questions that we should be asking, and And I don't agree with this statement. I don't think it's watertight. And I think pivoting on Turning Point side to left-wing violence and the midterms and everything else when there are questions like this, that's where I side with Candace. I think Candace is right in asking the questions. I think she's wrong in not giving us the data behind some of her statements, but I think she's right in saying, hey, not so fast. Let's not get totally diverted and back into political mode. Let's get to some of these big questions that are still yet to be addressed by the storyline and the narrative from the feds. So what are your thoughts? What do you think of Tucker's statement? Do you think he's being fair in holding reservation, but also asking questions? What are your thoughts on Candace Owens? She's been leading the charge in going down some of these rabbit holes and asking some tough questions. You agree with my statement on Candace, that she's had some statements, some of which have been good questions, but she hasn't shown the data. I don't want to see the data before I'm going to sign on to the direction that you're taking this. And lastly, and maybe more importantly, is this. Where does this leave our movement, America First and MAGA, with what Charlie was really fighting for the whole time, which is to get proper representation for our values in Washington? And does that mean, to Andrew Colvett's point, that we must pivot immediately and we need to get back to focused on the midterms? Clearly, the midterms are just around the corner. I'm making the case that we can walk and chew gum. We can do both. We can ask good questions to continue the narrative, the public dialogue of what's going on with Charlie's, the event and the questions that we have behind it. And I think we can also focus on the midterms. There's no reason why we can't do both. That's my feeling. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you've yet to subscribe to America First Alerts, please do so. We'd love to have you along for the ride. We'll see you in the next video.